Today, we're going to take a look at how we can create an annotated weather map using Microsoft PowerPoint. I'm a PC user, and so on my mouse, I have left and right mouse buttons to click. Mac users will have to make the accommodation that's necessary for that, the left and right. So this is useful, especially if you don't have a printer. But even if you do have a printer, once you watch this video, you may find that you believe you can make a neater looking map using PowerPoint tools than you can do if you do this by hand. Let's take a look at what's involved. First, I open Microsoft PowerPoint. Before I can bring in a weather map, which in this case, it's saved as a GIF file. We'll be pulling in a weather map in a minute, but we have to put it into a slide. So the first thing we have to do is to add a slide. So on PowerPoint's homepage, we go to New Slide, and I click on this arrow. And the choice that I get when I click on the arrow, I'm going to choose the blank slide. Once I have the blank slide, then I can drag in an image. If you happen to get one of the other choices, so that, for example, if I just click on New Slide, well, that's repeating my previous choice, but let's say I got one of the other ones, like a title slide. If I got a title slide, what I could do is click on each one of these boxes and then hit delete. And I could create a blank slide if I didn't have it. So I am going to delete that slide. I will ultimately need 2 slides for what I'm going to do, so I'll leave those 2. I want to bring in my weather map. I've got a choice here. I can either go to Insert and then click on Pictures and go through the choices there. I personally find it easier to have a directory open in the directory that contains the map I want to use, and then I just use my mouse to put the cursor on top of it, press down on the left mouse button, drag that file name into the PowerPoint slide, and now I have my first image. Now, the latest version of PowerPoint suggests some different ways that this could be laid out. The first way is tempting because it helps to magnify the map. I will not choose that though, because what it does is it drags the left and the right sides until they completely fill the image, which means it trims off the top and bottom. If I trim off the top and bottom, I lose all this labeling information at the top and bottom. So this tells me that I'm looking at a sea level pressure map in millibars, same as hectopascals. It's produced at a wonderful website that I'll cover in a separate video. Plymouth State University has an online facility to make your own weather maps where you have a great deal of choice of what the area is, what variable you're plotting, how it's contoured, what colors are used, things like that. The resolution of the GIF that's output for that. It tells you the software, this WXP software is being used, and the time, 16Z, 16 hours Greenwich Mean Time on the 29th of January, 2021. At the bottom, it indicates that I've chosen a contour increment of 2, in this case, millibars. It tells me the low value of the pressure on the map is 1,002 hectopascals. The high value is 1,036. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to drag this over to the side. And now I'm going to use the space here to put in some text information. So if I go to our Home tab on PowerPoint, the top row has some drawing tools that I'll be using. And the drawing tool I need right now is the very first one. It's called a text box. I click on that, and then I'll go into this open area. I'll press down on the left mouse button, drag it to my lower right-hand corner to define the text box that I want, and then release it. Now I've got a text box. In this box, I can type things like homework, and then if there's a homework number, a homework title can go in there. Whatever the number is, I'll just put question mark there because it could be any homework number. And then here I can type in a title here. Now, if the line break doesn't occur where I want to, I can back up, hold down the Shift key, and hit Enter. and that will create a new line wherever I want the line to be. It's a very useful thing because otherwise the line break will occur just when you hit the end of a line. And that may not be the best place for readability. Now I get to the end of the line. If it's a homework assignment, I may wish to, at this point, type in my name, and then I can put in a date like 29 January 2021. If I want to, I can drag this, make it a little bit bigger, so I can probably get this to fill up the space that's available. I could type in more up here if I wanted to. I could change the font size by highlighting things. I can highlight that. I can click on here with font. Once I click on font, this would enable me to change the color if I wanted to. I could make things bold if I wanted to. There are various choices that I could do at this point. The simplest way actually to get bold is up here on the Home tab. I just click on B for bold there. Now, I'm at a point where I want to draw some vectors to represent gradients on the map. So that means I need to draw some arrows. Up here on the Home tab for PowerPoint, I've got my drawing tools, and this third line over, it's small, but if you look at it, the diagonal line has a vector arrow at the head. So I'm going to click on that. That means I've selected that. So I'm going to draw my first gradient. Gradients go from low side of contours to high side of contours at right angles to the contour. I've chosen an area here where the contours are pretty close together, which means there's a large gradient. So I release it, and now I've drawn my first gradient vector. The problem with this is that that vector is really skinny, not so easy to read. So I want to make a thicker vector. Once I've placed that, I get some more tools up here. The tool I want to use is the shape outline. I click on shape outline. Not only does it let me click on whatever color I want, we'll see the default is a blue. It's not a bad color, so I'll leave that. But the thing we really need to change is the weight, the thickness of the line. The default is 1/2 point. I'm going to choose here 6 point. That creates a nice, easily readable vector. Now, I want these vectors to be approximately proportional to the magnitude. So because the contour lines are close here, I need a fairly long vector. And I remember that the gradient line crosses contours at right angles, pointing from the low value side to the high value side. So up here, we've got a low, there's a trough that comes down here. And we've got, so we're going from the low pressure side to the high pressure side. Now, it's perpendicular to the contour. It's not a large scale decision. So this vector, if it represents what's going on in this area, should not just point to the high way down here. That's based on something going on in this area. We have to draw the gradient based on just what's happening in the area where we're interested. And I'm drawing this gradient to indicate what's going on in this area that's occupied by most of the gradient vector. Now, in an assignment, you may want to mark several different places of the gradient. So what I'll do then is I could go up here on the Home, select the tool again, but then I'd get another skinny vector that I'd have to increase its width, increase the weight. What is easier for me is I am going to click on that arrow, and I'm going to make a copy of it. The easiest way to make a copy is to hold down the Control key, then move your cursor on top of the arrow, press down with the left mouse button and drag it to the side and release. Now I've made a copy of it. I'll click off to the side, and I can then make another copy. I've clicked again, hold down the Control key, drag it to the side, and I've got that. Now, if I were to just press down on the Control key and drag what I've just done, I get yet another one. Occasionally, when you do this, you might just wind up moving the vector arrow rather than getting a copy. If you move it without getting the copy, then you'll want to undo it so that you can replace the vector where it was. To undo a command in any part of Microsoft Office, the command is Control-Z, Z. That Control-Z will undo the change. So if you wound up moving a vector instead of copying it, Control Z will place it back where it was. So now I've got 4 vectors, and I need to choose places where I want to have them represent the gradient, and I also want to have adjust the lengths. So I'm going to go down here, for example, where the gradient's pretty small. That'll be one of the places. So I'll grab the head to adjust this so that I'm getting something that is short length, because the spacing between the contours is small there. I've placed that one. I can go over here and put another one over on this side, because there's another large gradient here on this side. The spacing is, if anything, even slightly closer. So I am going to make this one even a little bit longer. I've got to try to get this to get it locally perpendicular, and then I'm going to lengthen it. So once again, the decision about the direction is based very locally on getting this line perpendicular to the height contours, so that the line will point from the low value to the high value side, but I'm not just trying to aim for high pressure on some other part of the map. I'm making this line perpendicular to the contours. Now for a 4th point, you might say, well, isn't this an interesting place? Well, this looks kind of strange. There's the question of whether this is even legitimate or not. To make a decision about whether it's a valid value or just a bad reading, you could do things like look at the map before and after that to see, does this feature survive more than one time? If it survives, is it showing some change? I have seen a case where there's an instrument at a station that just may be bad, and it always reads a certain fixed value that never changes. And so when you look at contoured maps, you always get these bullseyes around these bad observations. So I'll say this one looks suspicious. So I am going to avoid that one when I try to think about where could I place another line for this. Let me place this 4th one. Let's put it over in this area. Now I know I've got to go from low values toward high values, so I have to swing this arrow around, and then it's going to cross at right angles. If I'm like over here, gradients is fairly small because there's a wider spacing. So I'm going to shorten the arrow. Now it's not as big a spacing as over here. I might even see if I can shorten this one a little more. So here is my smallest gradient where we've got the greatest spacing between the contours. Somewhere around here, I've got large gradients, so these are both pretty long. And then this one is a wider spacing than my high gradient places, but not as far apart as down here. So I've got an intermediate length. So I've placed my vectors. Now I want to label the vectors. What I'll do here is I'll click on the home key. I will go up to my text box. And once again, to place a text box, you click on that text box. Then you click the left mouse button to mark the upper left corner, drag it down to mark the lower right corner. And now at this point, I can type in a letter like the letter A. That is small. It's also black. It's the map and the contours are black. So I'm going to choose something that's got a little more variety in it. So I am going to choose a color here. I'm going to have it match the blue. And I'm going to kick this all the way up to 32 points to make it bigger. I could even make it bold if I want to. So now I just grab the map. So I move the map rather than so I'm going to hit Control Z to replace the map. So let me just click in some neutral place over here so I don't shift the map. Now I'll see if I can find the box, the text box. I'm going to copy this text box to my 4 other places. So I've clicked on the box. I push down on the Control key, hold that down, use my mouse to grab the box, lift up on Control key and lift up on the mouse, press down on the Control key again, drag it to a new location, release everything, press down on the Control key, drag it to my fourth location. Now at this point, I can label this. This one I'm going to leave as A. I'll make this one B. This one will be C. And the last one will be D. Once I've done all that, then I can save this, Control S. Now I want to produce a second map. I'm just going to get this one started. The second one is going to be another map. In this case, it's surface temperature. I grab the image, drag it in, bring that in. Once again, I could move this to the side, create a text box if I want to. Part of the reason why I brought in this map was to show you this funny feature over here. I believe this is a really bad observation off the coast. This is a surface temperature map in degrees Celsius. You look down here in the opposite corner, it says the contour increment is 2 degrees Celsius. So we have, what, 20 contours or something? And so there's this indication that the temperature is changing extremely rapidly off to the side. We didn't see anything in the pressure field that indicates anything really strange going on in the pressure field. We'll also point out, we see this kind of funny thing here in the pressure field over in North Dakota. When we look at the temperature field, there's a little bit of a curve. So maybe, but there's certainly no very localized feature in the temperature, but this temperature feature here, we don't see anything like that in the pressure field. This to me looks really invalid. So what we can do at this time is I can take my map, I can click on copy, I can go down to the other slide, and let's see if I can paste this in. I click in the area, I do paste, and I've got my new arrow there. I can go back up, click one of my boxes, click the boundary of the box, click copy, go to my second one, click in the area, right mouse click, get my choices and paste. And now I can make copies of these, put gradients, in this case of a temperature gradient at various places around, label, use different letters to label those places. If I wanted to, I could drag the map to the side, put a text box and label there. Once I'm all done with that, I save my image. And now I can make a PDF by going up to File, and I can choose Export. And then the default is create an Adobe PDF that way. Another place, if I don't want to convert the entire document, let's say I just want to output one page, is I could use the print option. I could go to print, and then I look at what my various print choices are. Now, I have installed the actual Adobe Acrobat program. So I've got one of my choices is Adobe PDF. Not everybody's going to have that. You'd have to install the special Adobe Acrobat package. But everybody with Microsoft Office will have Microsoft Print to PDF. So you could choose that, and then you could put down here, which slides do you want? The default is print all of them. But if I just wanted, let's say, the first map, then in here, I could click in there and say, I only want the first one. There are other ways here that I could choose this. I could either put, this would be a full slide by itself. I can have some place where notes could be made, various choices on how it's printed. So if you want the entire document, I suggest using the export command. If you want a little more control over it, to put, let's say, more than one image on a slide, you can use print and then print to Microsoft Print to PDF. We'll do that. So I'll use export. I want to export everything. So I click on that. It will ask you where you want to save it. The starting point is where you have opened the PowerPoint. It'll give it the same name, but then have a suffix .pdf, which I can save. And it will go through the save and then show me the PDF that it's saved. At this point, the only other thing that you might want to do is you may have more than one PDF that you'd like to assemble to make one PDF for your whole assignment. Maybe there's some additional work that you've got to do that creates one or more other PDFs. You can combine PDFs by doing a web search on Combine PDFs Online Free. And you'll see there's more than one website where if you go to that website, there'll be some very simple instructions where you will effectively drag the PDF files from your computer directory into the window for the website, get the order of the files the way you want them, and then click on Go, and it will merge these various PDFs into one PDF, and then you can download that and save it on your computer. That's a topic for a separate video. Thank you.